Hello, everyone, and welcome back to You Thought You Knew, the podcast where we talk about Survivor players that may be underrated, underappreciated, or just misunderstood. Each episode, we'll try to answer a question that's designed to make us challenge our preconceived notions about this famous Survivor contestant. Of course, there are no right answers. We're just using this as an excuse to talk about our favorite show. As always, I'm Nigel Bocanegra, and I'm joined by my fiance, Kevin McLain.
Yes, excited to be here. And, it's the season finale of You Thought You Knew, season 2. So I feel like we've talked about so many great characters, and we're going to talk about one of our favorite characters in Rob Cesternino today. And so I think a superstar character deserves a superstar guest, and I'm excited that we have the person here today.
We are very lucky to be blessed with the presence of the purple pants badass himself, Brice Izyah. Brice, how are you?
I am wonderful and so happy to be here. So thank you for having me. Anytime I get to talk about Robert, I am always in. Okay.
Well, we're so glad that you're able to join us for what I hope is going to be a very iconic conversation. Kevin, do you want to let the folks know what we're going to be discussing today?
Yes, I'll do my dramatic 60 minutes intro. After 2 seasons of character analysis and content, it felt obvious that we needed to do an episode around the legacy and legend of Rob Cesternino himself. The first of the superfans, the comedic strategist archetype, one of the best to never win. Now he's known as the Podfather for helping create and build a community of Survivor fans that has now lasted over a decade. Rob has a podcast that's brought people together from literally around the world to talk, discuss, and laugh at the world's greatest game, Survivor. In recent years, he has elevated conversations surrounding gender, race, and sexuality, proving him to be more than just a Survivor character, but an actual ally. This begs the question, is Rob Cesternino a gay icon? Since gay icons do not need to be gay themselves, see Beyonce, Cher, or Sandra Diaz-Twine, why can't Rob be a gay icon? While Rob may not be gay himself, his character and personality still resonated with many gay viewers. In Survivor the Amazon, many gay men saw themselves in Rob as he worshipped the beautiful women around him, targeted alpha males, and relied on his witty raconteur to win over competitors and fans alike. You think you know Rob Cesternino? Well, we think we do. And on this episode of You Thought You Knew, we will be covering the legend and legacy of Rob Cesternino, but also humoring the question, is Rob Cesternino a gay icon?
Kev, I think that is maybe my favorite intro that you have done for any of the characters that we've talked about
Thank
here.
you. I mean, we should just do a whole series where we just ask, is X character a gay icon? And we can just write it the same way. How fun.
We can, just retool the podcast to just be, is blank a gay icon?
Yeah, is Jeffra Bland a gay icon? Is it just any random person, insert them in, and we get to investigate it, This is investigative journalism 101.
Yes.
Set up a concept and just keep pushing. So I'm really fun to talk about this, and I think it's like, maybe a bit loaded for some people, but I mean, this is an affectionate, excited concept to be discussing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brice, what do you think to you, like, what does a gay icon mean to you?
For me, a gay icon is someone that the LGBTQ plus community loves, adores, someone that has a large fan base that is gay, someone that is absolutely an ally, and somebody that's just amazing. In my own mind, I would like to think that they have an amazing fashion sense, so that's already a strike against Rob. But someone that is just really embraces everyone and honestly allows people to be themselves around them. For me, is really what makes a gay icon.
That's a great summary. I love that because, in many ways, I do feel like when I pitched this idea to Rob, I was like, oh, I feel like we're like risking our season's cancellation here. Like someone could misunderstand like what we're meaning. And so I want to clarify that, like, of course, this is not offensive. It's appreciative. Like, we're not calling Rob gay. We're calling him maybe iconic to the gays, right? Like, and that has a very different meaning. It's like, I think maybe Rob is a gay icon to us, but like the question is should other people see him in that way? Or maybe that's another way to enrich your viewing or appreciation of Rob by seeing him in those lights. So I actually looked on the very well-respected Wikipedia to get the definition of gay icon. And so I'm just going to read this out because I do think it covers a lot what Brice just said, but I think, again, framing for a lot of the listeners who may not be familiar with such terminology. A gay icon is a public figure who is regarded as a cultural icon by members of the LGBTQ community. Said figures usually have a devoted LGBTQ fan base and have acted as allies to the community, often through their work, and have often, and in quotes here, openly appreciative of their gay fan base. Many gay icons also have a camp aesthetic style, which has often been described as part of their appeal. Most widely recognized gay icons tend to be celebrities with large LGBT fan bases, such as Judy Garland, Madonna, Janet Jackson, Cher. However, the label can and has also been applied to individuals in politics, sports, literature, and other mediums, as well as historical figures deemed relatable to LGBT causes. Prominent entertainers considered to be gay icons often incorporate themes of acceptance, self-love, and sexuality in their work. Gay icons of all orientations within the community have acknowledged their role that their gay fans have played in their success. So, part of this was kind of inspired by Grace in the Todd interview for The Pride Has Spoken had mentioned that for so long, gay and queer people were deprived of representation so much that we just started seeing ourselves in straight figures. Think of Ursula from The Little Mermaid movie. It's based off a drag queen, but I don't know if every single person knew that going into the movie, but they're resonating with that in a way. Or any character that has a big personality or one that is trying to figure out who they are. I mean, Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz is a great example of that. And so I think it's a very interesting concept to be, discussing today.
So Brice, you were someone who was a fan of Survivor going into being on the show. And since then, I think you've become an iconic member of the Survivor alumni community and have gotten to meet a lot of them. So is there anyone who has been on Survivor, we'll say not including Rob, that you think of as a gay icon?
Obviously, this is an easy one for me. I'm going to go with the easy person, and it would be my best friend, Wendell Holland. I think that he, for sure, could be regarded as a gay icon. And again, when we talk about representation, being a Black man and having a gay Black man like myself as a best friend is really not that it's... what's the word I want to use? It is not that common in the Black community. And so I think that Wendell really does exemplify what acceptance is, always willing to learn, always willing to be an ally, utilize his voice. So I definitely would think of someone like a Wendell Holland would be an icon for sure.
I think that's a great answer and a fun answer as well, because quite often when I think of who are the gay icons of Survivor, it's often women, right? It's going to be a lot of women the same way that in pop music, it's women, right? So I think a lot of us might think of Parvati or the Black Widows Brigade in general, feels very gay icons because they are, taking out big, strong guys in favor of usually people who are marginalized or misunderstood. And so I think Survivor is chock full of them, but I think it's also really fun to think about, we have such important straight male allies as well that could totally be put in that. And especially I think when you intersect race is even more interesting.
Absolutely. I also for me, obviously I'm going to say Ozzy, I think for sure is a gay icon. I think that he truly is amazing. I think the mother of them all, Sari Fields, in my opinion, is a gay icon. And again, I feel also just gay icon. We have amazing, I feel like Zeke, I feel like Evie, they are truly amazing queer icons that our community has to look up to. So I really feel since the diversity initiative, we've gotten to see so many more iconic players, which is really important, and not just one type of iconic player. I think that since our diversity initiative, we get to see amazing players, even Jam Jam. I think that Jam Jam is iconic in its own right. Carolyn, the list could just honestly go on, but first of all, I love this topic because now in my mind, I'm just random names are just popping in my mind. And I'm wait, hold on, wait. There's so many people that we could name.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you're totally right, Brice, that it's so exciting that in the most recent season of Survivor, we set a record for most number of queer people on one tribe at a time, right? So it's so cool to see how the show has progressed over time. But I'm sure that, part of the reason that there is a very vibrant queer fan base of Survivor is going back to the very first season. Richard Hatch, the first winner of the show, is an openly gay man in the year 2000. And for a lot of people, that was absolutely groundbreaking. I mean, at that time, how many gay men were you even getting to see on television? You know?
And I think funnily enough, I think Rudy Bosch technically is a gay icon for aligning with Rich so early on. And so like again, like you don't have to be like it's such a wide term because it just means that you resonate in a way with the community. And so like it could be a lot of different types of people, and I think that's really fun. So I wanted to give a little bit of backstory about also why I came up with this as a pitch. I remember years ago, and I feel like RHAP has either deleted this episode or it's just been lost in the ether. So maybe it's a Mandela effect. I could be just lying right now. But I recall around like 2012-ish time, I was listening to a podcast, RHAP. Rob and Nicole were answering like viewer questions with Sandra Diaz-Twine. And I recall the question being to Sandra, how do you feel about having such a large gay fan base or having so many gay fans? To which Sandra said, oh, I love it. I've always been supportive, and I think they see like the sass in me, and like that resonates with them, and I think that's cool. And then Nicole jokes to Rob, it's like, yeah, Rob, you don't know what it's like to have a big gay fan base. And Rob said, and this is why it's seared in my memory, he says, you'd be surprised. I think I have a lot of gay fans, actually. And I think just from that moment, just kind of thinking about that and thinking about how popular Rob has been in a lot of the spaces I've been in, which tend to track more queer in general, just because as a queer person, that's where you're going to find yourself. I was like, maybe he is a gay icon, actually, because people clearly resonate with him or find him interesting or different. So I just thought it would be a fun idea. And so when we pitched it to him and he approved it, I was like, these are only more points in your favor, Rob.
Iconic behavior.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely.
So Brice, I'm not sure. When did you first find Survivor?
So I want to say my first time getting introduced to Survivor, I was like in high school, and my first season that I watched of Survivor was Sari Field's season, the one where I believe they broke them up by ages, and then Sari was like, "Wait, they got me with the old people. I'm not old," and so that was really my first introduction to Survivor, and since I've been like hooked ever since, and so I didn't necessarily see Rob's season when it aired because, I'm such a baby. I was like 6 months old when Survivor Amazon aired. So I had to actually go back to see Rob in action. And it is, for me, I don't know if that was the question, but I'm going to just answer the question that I had in my head.
Fantastic.
But for me, it's so crazy because, I know Rob, or I got familiar with Rob like post Cagayan, and we developed a friendship. And then it was just like so interesting because I like have this like image of Rob, and then to go back, in my opinion, and see like baby Rob is like, I feel like he has morphed into a different person from Survivor until like who he is now. And when I even met him like almost at this point a decade ago.
Yeah, and as just a quick side note, Brice, I actually mention to Kevin all the time about how painful it is now hearing Sari talk about being on the quote old lady tribe, because the first time I saw it, I was like, well, she is like a lot older than me. And now I'm like Sari's age at that time. And it's like, what do you mean I could be on the old lady tribe too?
Right.
But I think that it's so interesting to look back at Survivor Amazon and see baby Rob compared to the Rob that we know now, because I definitely became aware of RHAP before I had ever seen Survivor Amazon. And it feels like such a time capsule too, because, it was 2003, something like that. And everything, I think the way that we communicated with each other, talked to each other was very different. I think that you, in watching it today, notice a lot of the things that have not aged as well when the men are talking about the women or vice versa. But I think, what always like really stood out to me about Rob on Amazon is that he seems like he's the person who's most vocally uninterested in being on the all men's tribe, and is always very quick to make sure he does not underestimate the women that he is surrounded by, when a lot of the men are thinking, yeah, we're the guys, we're totally going to steamroll this. We got this figured out. Rob is constantly saying, I don't know why all the guys think that they're going to outsmart the women. The women are going to get them.
Yeah. And I think that actually, it's very notable that until Colton was on One World, we didn't have like gay men be on these like male divided tribes. Right. So like, as a gay man watching the show, or, a gay kid at the time, of course, it was like, who am I supposed to really relate to on the men's group? And, I think quite often what a gay icon is someone who hates the tribe they're born into. Because, like, I think a lot of gay queer people out there, you aren't exactly satisfied with where you're at because you need to find where you fit, where your community is, where the people that are going to trust and appreciate you for you. And I think Rob didn't feel the most secure in the men's group. And, he's just a straight guy that isn't like a workout, like buff, like some of them, but like, I just found it very, very powerful.
Mhm.
I thought it was interesting because I feel like, and again, it's been a time since I have seen the Amazon, but what I do remember of Rob is that I feel like he birthed the Flip Flop Alliance. Like, I feel like he was very like, I'm with you this day, and then the next day getting rid of people. And for me, I feel like if we're talking gay icon, it's like, one day I can like you today, next day, I don't know how I feel about you. But not even being funny, but I think about like that flip flop strategy as a gay man. And sometimes I can only speak for myself, but it's like a Black gay man. Um, I have to use that strategy, or I remember growing up having to kind of like flip flop and do different things in the sense to like survive in elementary school, not to get teased or not to get picked on. So I think that like his birthing of the flip flop strategy could also be something that resonates with the gay community as well.
I think that's a great point, Brice. And I also think that why does Survivor have such a large queer fan base? And I think part of that is this idea that, like, it's a game that is about deception a little bit, but also self-discovery at the same time while you're doing all the deceiving. And so, like, how can you not like that resonate in a way? Because I think if you just plucked a random straight person on the streets and said, "Do you know Survivor has a pretty big gay fan base?" They'd be like, "What are you talking about? Why would it be?" But like, I think once you get part of the community, you really start seeing that actually as a thing. And I think the this flip flopping ability to relate to different people at different times is very relatable for queer fans.
And I also think that what so many people love about Survivor is that it is the microcosm of our society, right? But our society is set up in a way that there are a lot of different groups of people who are not advantaged like others are. And as much as we are always striving for equality, there are a lot of discrepancies that are out there for people. And what's, I think, so amazing about Survivor is that unlike this massive society that has been set up, on Survivor, you have tribes of 6, 8, 10 people where your individual power is so much greater because you're in such a smaller setting. And so I think that you do get a little more opportunity at times to be able to.
I mean, I don't know if I would
Maybe
agree with that
maybe not in
assessment.
some seasons.
Yeah, I mean, certainly not true all the time, but I think it's that there is the idea that you could have more say in your individual journey than often you do in the real world.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't always mean that it happens, but I do
And
think
it certainly
maybe
doesn't.
as the fan watching, as a queer fan watching, maybe you can kind of see that a little bit.
I think it's the
differently.
hope that you could.
There's an
have
optimism
more.
component, and like, let me tell you, if there's anything queer people want more than anything, it's optimism. That's why I think we like camp and we like the fun and the silly and like, ooh, a bad joke or like joking about our own trauma. I feel like those are all very much tied to this, like, wanting to like be happy and fulfilled and respected and appreciated, which is something that, based on a lot of decisions that certain political figures have made, it feels like it's very much like at risk.
For sure. But I to your point, I agree with you where I think that a lot of the gay community loves Survivor because in real life, right, there may be people that we would never be able to speak with or talk to. And I think that Survivor kind of like evens that playing field where it's like never in a million years would you be able to be this close with someone that maybe you wouldn't be that you wouldn't like. But in this weird realm, you get to see your strengths shine. And I think that like we as queer people love that opportunity to be like, maybe not in this life, but like in another realm or another world, I would be able to shine and be myself. And I think that that really, like you said, gives the optimism of us in Survivor. And I think that that's why I mean, Survivor is just a great show, but you could see yourself in different characters and imagine if you were out there and this big, strong guy that you would never, or this country girl that you would never interact with, but like here is a talent that you have that could potentially bring everyone together. So I think that is what is rooted in the community of Survivor, which is why I think, the gays, we love it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Nigel, what's next for us?
So, do you want to dive into some of the information that you've looked up about perceptions of Rob?
So just moving directly into how Rob is
Or
being perceived
Or do you
now.
want to go over his journey on Survivor first?
Yeah, so just to kind of, obviously, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you know who Rob Cesternino is. But in case you've forgotten, I will kind of just like read out some things about his time on Survivor, his 2 seasons, just to kind of refresh people. Rob starts out on Survivor the Amazon, 24 years old, from Long Island, New York, and he's placed on the men's Tambaki tribe. And he's really makes a name for himself for being such a strategist. He leads a lot of the strategy, and he participates in blindsides that include, but not limited to, Roger, Dina, Alex, Christy, and then he gets all the way to the final 3 and is voted off for losing the final immunity challenge by then winner Jenna Maraska. And even though he loses, he's considered one of the best players that's ever played in those several seasons, and considered one of the smartest players to never win either. He returns 2 seasons later, Survivor All-Stars, where he does make a deal with the Boston Rob. That Boston Rob blindsides and betrays him, and he's voted out pre-merge, unfortunately. But, Rob has obviously made a name for himself way after his time on Survivor by, putting Rob Has a Podcast together and really giving us so much of a community.
I always say, although he didn't win, I feel like Survivor fans will agree with me that each season has a winner, but there always is another winner. Like there are some seasons, and again, respectfully, because anyone that has won Survivor, they deserve it. But there are some seasons where I will be like, who won that season? But I'll know 3 or 4 different people, and I'm like, honestly, they're the real winners. So although, Rob may have never won Survivor, I really feel like he truly did win that season because he won the hearts of especially the gays.
Yeah, well, and I think it's like, how if you're really famous, you can win like an honorary doctorate from the university. You're doing a commencement speech of, like, Barack Obama has done this and stuff.
Mhm.
So it's like, I think like Rob is like an honorary winner. If you were trying to think about who could be in that same tier, I feel like Rob is one of the first people you name. I mean, Sari Fields, of course, a lot of other like really great people whose like cumulative work adds up to a win, even if a jury didn't technically validate it with like a true stamp, but the fans have. So
Yeah, I mean, having this big podcasting network about Survivor reality television, that feels like someone who won. I'm sure Rob also wanted the check, but that does feel like someone who comes out a winner at the end of all of it, right?
And not even, and take Survivor out of it. Like Rob really got in during the podcast era where people didn't really know what podcasts were. So like outside of Survivor, like he really was a pioneer in the Survivor game. Even, when he was in the basement to the living room, and now, he has this empire.
yeah, and I remember hearing about Rob Has a Podcast, well, as a Survivor fan in like the, a few years before Kagi on. And I remember seeing Rob Has a Podcast, but I'm like, what's a podcast? Like, I'm not clicking on this link yet because I have no idea what a podcast is. And then you hear enough people talking about it, you hear about the interviews and all that. I'm like, oh, how cool. And then I got totally sucked in, as many of us do. And now we all, create content for his little pyramid scheme. Just kidding. And so it is kind of wild to think about Rob as revolutionary, not just in Survivor, but also in like broadcasting and coverage and all of those things. Nigel, you ready for me to kind of jump into like the research that I've done?
Yeah, let's do it.
So obviously we're here to talk about character appreciation, legacy analysis. Who are these people? Who are they as figures to the Survivor discourse that exists? And so I did some research, Brice, about what does the internet feel about Rob in general. So what's kind of like what his feeling is now versus how his perception was then, as a way to kind of get to what the true perspective of Rob should be. So I went on the subreddit. I found a post titled "Why is everyone obsessed with Rob C?" And the top comment here, I think, definitely gives Rob his flowers. It says, he really is a great strategist for starters. I believe at one point, Probe said he was the greatest to never win. But honestly, I think a huge part of his online presence, he's done an AMA. He does Rob Has a Podcast. He did Reality Game Masters. He's a huge fan and a student of the game, and he wears it proudly. And it makes him feel like he's one of us. So yes, he gets a lot of attention. And I think that makes a lot of sense to me because, Rob as the first symbol of what it means to be a super fan, is it a surprise that a lot of super fans look like Rob or like kind of think about the game like Rob or interact with Survivor like Rob? Like he kind of like sets the tone for so many people.
And I think an important part too is that starting the podcast is not just a way of being engaged with Survivor, but he really has created a community that is so far beyond just you opening your iPhone and listening to the latest episode that dropped. When I moved to Washington, D.C. and had like one friend in the city, I went to a Survivor meetup because I thought I would be able to make friends, and it was organized through the listeners of RHAP. And that is where I met Kevin. So the RHAP community is what brought me my fiance that will be marrying me in less than a month now. But, Rob created space for people to connect about, often their favorite show, but about far more beyond just Survivor.
Absolutely. But see, first of all, Nigel, this is supposed to be a happy podcast, okay? I done been to millions of Rob's events. Where my fiance? I'm trying to figure something out. But yeah, no, he really has sparked a community. Like even Wendell and I, we do Brice and Win Present, and it's kind of sort of like an umbrella under the RHAP community. And it's like the people that come look so beautifully unique and different, and it's like Rob has really created that space for people to be themselves, because honestly, like if you really know Rob is quirky. Rob is like I think where Rob and I connect is that like we're both really awkward, right? So we'll be on the phone and it's like 10 minutes in and we both like yeah, like and I think that his quirky, awkward, like strategic mastermind, listening to that really makes you feel like he could be your friend, or really makes you feel like you can come as you are, because his community is so diverse. And so like, again, kudos to Rob for just creating this amazing RHAP community that again spans far beyond Survivor.
And, we can bring it up with Rob next time that you haven't found a fiance at one of the events yet. We can definitely try to work on it.
Okay. We need a podcast. Find Brice Love.
So I was also able to find a post about, can we take a minute to give some credence to the legacy of Rob Cesternino? So a great way also to kind of view how fans are talking about him. So someone mentioned, it's the off season, so we of course are seeing a million Survivor Rushmores out there, and ranking threads pop up. And one consistent trend I've noticed is that there's very little love for Rob Cesternino and his legacy on this sub. Don't get me wrong. Rob has his fans here. So many are tied simply to RHAP and don't seem to recognize his game or influence on it. I think a big part of this fandom and this sub as well is that it's trended young in recent years. A lot of people here haven't watched Amazon, or those who haven't watched it at the time, which you kind of need to do, or at least watch the seasons in order to really appreciate the influence Rob put on the game's evolution, and an influence that carries through the game to this day. Even when you look at his social game, Rob seemed to be the first person to really use personal relationships built through his sense of humor. Remember his 8-ball as a luxury item. And he bonds to exert influence over the game in a way beyond, we're allies, let's vote together. His social bonds are what allowed him to hop back and forth between sides without really losing standing in the game. It's what allowed him to betray virtually every player in the game, and it still guaranteed him to likely beat Jenna or Matthew had he won the final competition. Rob is a pioneer. Even in terms of Survivor media coverage, can you think of anyone more influential or anything more influential than RHAP? So again, more flowers for Rob.
Yes. Do we get to talk about Rob's staple iconic plaid shirts?
Yes. What are your thoughts on the plaid shirts?
So, I think Rob I don't call them plaid. I call them robbed. Okay, like they're robbed shirts, because again, that's another check to make you a gay icon, is to have your own style and your own flair. And Rob knows his lane and he stays in it. And I think that, when you go to the events and you see the people in his robbed shirt, you can see his influence. But I love him. Sometimes a lot maybe of the ones in the older years I ain't really like so much. But I just love that, Rob was like, I don't know what I'm going to wear. Oh, there's a plaid shirt. And why you have so many plaid shirts though, Rob, is what I want to know. For me, it goes again to the person that Rob is. Like, at heart, he's just a very simple man. So, he was probably in the Walmarts one day and was like, oh, I like this plaid shirt. They've got them in 4 colors. I got 4 days worth of outfits. But I love the iconic plaid Robbed shirts. And again, I love the evolution of, Rob get a little more fancier with his shirts. They're not all plaid. But again, I think that he started a movement with plaid shirts.
And so, for those of you that are not watching on YouTube, Kevin and I are wearing pink today in honor of the Barbie movie that we saw this weekend.
And gay icons generally.
But we did discuss, should we wear plaid in honor of Rob? And I have to say, how many of us have an iconic look that would allow others to say, I can dress up as this person?
Yeah, just Brice and Rob. 2 gay icons, in my opinion, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to continue through some of the research I found, there's a lot of polls about best to never win. Who would be on Survivor Legends? Rob ranked as the #1 pick of all men for a Survivor Legends season, beating out people like Tony, Russell, Tom, Coach. And he also was ranked #3 as the best to never win, only after Cirie and Dominic. Brice, does any of this surprise you?
Not at all. Not at all. My hope, as Rob being the gay icon that he is, I hope that when that call comes, because I really feel like, we're getting up to Survivor 50. And I feel like if they do a Survivor 50, it has to be like a legend, like old and new. And I just really hope that when that call comes, I hope that Rob takes it. Because, his life has changed now. And so I don't know if he would actually do it, but I just hope for the viewers, for myself, to give me more material to laugh with Rob, not at him. But I hope that he would make that call, because I think that, again, he really is one of the best to never win, but has won. Because in my mind, he's won. He won my heart. So listen, he the winner, okay?
I mean, we would be so lucky to have Rob come back for an all legends season. And, I thought he was just so funny in Amazon. And imagine him coming back now, so practiced on the microphone. Those confessionals would be gold.
Yeah. And Brice, how do you think Rob would do on a return for season 50? I mean, obviously I want Rob to return, but I remember what it was like when he returned the first time, and it broke my heart. So what do you think?
Child, it's giving Rob. He probably would be the first boot. Because he has made such a name for himself. And sometimes people don't like his take on Survivor, but I'm just like, how can you not like Rob's take? It's never rooted in anything other than strategic mind play and love. But so my bet is he's the first out, or he'll make the merge.
Yeah, I feel like it's like he could go so many different ways, because either you see all of his connections as something that you could use or something that you fear. And so it just depends on who's with him,
Right.
And, when we were watching Game Changers, I was so afraid every episode for Cirie and every episode for Sandra. And week after week, they were okay. They kept going. So, you never know what we could get. But I do know they would make Rob a very iconic character for as long as we would get to have him.
Yeah. Oh God, if they purpled Rob, it would be the greatest crime against humanity. Could you imagine a purpled Rob?
That could never happen.
I don't want to imagine it. Brice, if you were out there on Survivor Legends with Rob, would you align with him?
Well, I mean, I don't think I would be on the Legends, but would I align with Rob? I mean, I think I would, give Rob a little bit of flip-flopping. So, of course, I would align with him. But, could I write his name down? Or I could write his name down just as fast as I could say Robert. So but yeah,
I love the idea that maybe if you were to vote out Rob, it would say Robert on the parchment, and that's the reveal, and then it shoots to Rob being crestfallen, and it's so dramatic television.
Because it would obviously be your vote. That's perfect.
Then he plays the idol, and then we go back to camp, and I'm like, I didn't vote for you, Rob.
Yeah, he's like,
that was someone else.
like who else? They framed me. They know I call you
I-
Robert, and that's why they wrote it that way. They knew.
It was
Oh,
Tony.
that'd be so fun. So I also found this 2016 popularity poll, and they ranked every person on Survivor, all their multiple outings. So like Rob has 2 for Amazon and for All Stars, and it was very interesting to see kind of like where did this subreddit, one of the places of the most discourse about the show, how did they feel about Rob? And Rob's Amazon entry ranked number 4 overall.
Wow.
So that's the first percentile. I think that may be the highest person we've ever discussed, actually, on any You Thought You Knew episode. He ranks 4th out of 575 contestants. Some things of note here. His most favorable demographic, and this is where the core question comes back. His most favorable demographic here, straight people. His least favorable demographic, gay and bi voters.
Oh.
Done.
Wow.
Now, this being said, straight people gave him an average of 9.3 out of 10. Gay people gave him an average of 8.3 out of 10. Both are exceptionally high scores, but I think there is a bigger jump for straight people. This is very statistics, but like it's a bigger boost amongst straights. But like at the end of the day, gays still rank him very high. That's something maybe to consider when we think about whether he truly is a gay icon or not by the end of the episode.
2016 was a bad year for the gays anyway. So, we can't really go by those numbers. We got to take a look at like 2020, 2022, 2021. I think his numbers would be a little.
Exactly. Stop the count. We have to just do it. We have to re-elect. We got to see how the current fan base is. Because I would imagine Rob would still be ranked very, very high. And then his All-Stars outing, he was in the 21st percentile overall, so pretty good. And he was ranked 2nd out of the entire cast of All Stars, only behind Ethan Zahn. And I would say Ethan has a very dynamic edit in All Stars, so that's no surprise here. But I did want to talk a little bit more about how heterosexual voters, that's what they call them in this write-up, voted him number 1 overall. Right, so he's ranked number 1. Yao Man is ranked number 2, then Suri, then Earl, then Richard Hatch. So that's the top 5 for straight people. Gay and bi voters ranked him to 23rd overall, but still very high. And the only men that rank higher than him, because there is a bias among, and we're going to assume a lot of these voters are gay and bi men.
Is it Rupert?
It's only Yao Man and Todd are ranked higher. In fact, Rob is ranked higher than Jerry Manthe, which tells me that, because I think Jerry Manthe is kind of a gay icon too, because she was like so hated by America. And if that's anything gay men can relate to, is being hated by America. So why, if that's the level he's still meeting, I don't think that disqualifies him for being a gay icon. What do you think, Nigel?
I mean, I totally agree. And, I think that amongst these gay and bi voters, as Reddit calls them, I think that there is so much idolization and viewing women as gay icons who may be heterosexual themselves. And I think that a lot of it probably comes from the fact that they are at times like anti-patriarchy, which I think for so many reasons really resonates with queer people. And so for Rob to be the 3rd highest ranking man overall amongst these voters, and one of the only people that ranks higher than him is Todd, a gay winner himself, I think really does speak to the fact that maybe for his like demographic, Rob is very overrepresented or viewed as particularly fine.
I think if we do a straight curve, if you will, if we grade on a curve, I think definitely he's like reaching this like very high level. And so I did a little bit more digging into the data here. Yeah. And it's no, Rob does not get a boost with gay and bi voters. But then again, most men don't, right? Like quite often it is gay and bisexual men that are seeing women as the goddesses that they are, where like a lot of straight fans just are not resonating in the same way. So there are, however, men that do better with gay and bi voters over straight people, but they quite often just tend to be attractive. That's like the oldling thing that they're bringing to the table. And I will say attractive and quite often white attractive men with abs, which does point to some other issues amongst the gay community that I feel like would be safe for another podcast. But So I think Rob is doing pretty well because he does not fit into the same demographic as some of the other men that were ranked high. Like John Kenny from Vanuatu was ranked higher amongst gay men than straight, or gay voters than straight voters. But like John Kenny also had no personality. So like, what are we really debating here? But I wanted to also mention that the straight man who has the highest boost from gays compared to straight voters is Chase Rice. And I believe the second person to him is John Mish. And I think maybe what's happening here is that these are straight men who are attractive, sure, but they align with fierce, outspoken women. And that is something we really appreciate. And to harken back to Rob in the beginning, he chooses to portray the men in honor of people like Dina, Jenna, and Heidi. And I said, work. This is incredible. Like, this is what we want to see. And so I feel like some of the reasons why they are liked are the same reasons Rob is liked, even if this specific variable is a little weird.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong. John Mish only votes for men to go home during San Juan del Sur. Correct?
I feel like I remember seeing a post about how John Mish has the record for most votes against men, like a man that's voted out the most men ever. And yes, feminist ally, go ahead and vote those men out. Thank you. Because he aligns with the women. After Jeremy goes, there really isn't a lot of, he's like voting with the women to keep the majority. And then the last thing I want to do for this segment, Brice, is I found a post titled Brice Izyah's and Rob Cesternino's friendship is something I didn't know I needed. How cute is that? From 2 years ago, over 100 upvotes. And a lot of people talking about, have you listened to the Purple Pants podcast? Definitely recommend. And then someone else, the second top comment here in all caps, just Robert.
Love that. Our relationship has grown as the podcast has grown. And I think, again, me being a Black gay man and doing interviews after I got out of Cagayan, and I got to be with Rob, and it really was, in my opinion, just the key session, right? And I feel like that's always my relationship with Rob, is that like I do the most, and Rob tries to make sense of it when he's not trying to hide his laughter. And again, I just love Robert because he makes me feel safe. And I always say this to like my friends, but like, I feel like people have a perception of myself, right? And, rightfully so, that's what I give. But there aren't really many people that like I reveal myself to, where I like, they see me and I can just be myself. And Robert is honestly one of those people where I reveal myself and I don't feel shame. And that's why we have this banter that people love, because, well, first of all, Rob has banter with everybody, okay? Because he's just that person. But, I like to think that our banter is a little special because, 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna be raunchy, and Rob has to kind of like try to clean it up, or yeah, he's just an amazing person. So I love the fact that people love our friendship because that's honestly us.
So Brice, my very first season of Survivor was Cagayan. So I found RHAP right around the same time. So for me, it's actually kind of hard to separate out Rob has a podcast from Survivor, because for me, they've been intertwined since the very beginning. So I feel like so much of my early Survivor memories are tied to, your season and the couple of years that come right after that. And that's when I think it was just like so exciting to have you come on at least once a season to check in. We get the input on the freakiest freak. And I just like always remembered looking forward to whenever we were finally going to have you back on the podcast, because I think that you and Rob have a really fun and unique dynamic compared to a lot of the other people that come through, because I do think that Rob enjoys when you get a little raunchy or like push it, make it a little edgier. I think he really has a lot of fun, but you can see Rob continuing to be Rob the host and trying to keep it all together too.
Absolutely. And it's, again, so funny because during that time, Rob used to just put out one long ass show, right? And so it was just interesting to see, like, he would have like the main guest, and then my check-in would be at like the end of the podcast. And again, they just kept asking me back, and I'm like, okay, sure. Like, this is, I love this. Because again, I love the show Survivor, right? but I don't always, and clearly how I did in Kaguya, I don't do the survivor math, right?
Yeah.
I'm not writing the survivor press articles. Like I am casually enjoying it and loving it. And so it's like I feel like at times my takes are very different than someone like a Rob's. And so when you mesh us together, but again, just seeing the evolution of our relationship and again being asked to come on and seeing the growth and freakiest freak. I mean, the Zaddy calendar, that is a thing that now has to happen every year. I mean, the birth of the Purple Pants podcast. I mean, I could go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so cool to see your relationship as well. And I remember listening to your exit interview with Rob. It's like something that really stood out to me, and I was like, I think like Rob really likes him. How fun is that? Because again, like Rob is a straight man. So anytime a straight man is even nice to a queer person, I'm like, oh my god, they're the best person that ever exists because the bar is so low. But like, I remember just like you have such a great back and forth, and it's like you're both like from the Northeast, right? So yeah, I think you have some things really in common, and you're so quick that I always appreciated. And what I wanted to say is, so when Nigel and I ever meet friends, they find out that we like Survivor early on, and so we usually will try to get them into it. We're like Survivor evangelicals, like convert them over, get them into the group, right? So our new friend Thad, we suggested him to watch Cagayan. And he just texted us yesterday and said, "Oh, Brice just got voted off. He deserved to be there longer." And I was like, "Oh, okay, Thad.
Yes, Thad.
This is a keeper. This is like this is a good taste already from right off the bat, right?" So I just think there is something about also like recognizing that's really nice. And I actually sent him your Survivor live interview with Parvati, which I remember, which is how I got into Survivor Live. I was like, oh my god, this is so funny and clever and so quick. And it's like, because I think that you're not about the Survivor math of it all, which makes you a little bit different than a lot of the some of the people who are talked about in the Survivor discourse. It's like refreshing and fun because it reminds us that we can have fun about Survivor. It's not just who's the best, what's the data. It's like, this is a show about entertainment, and who doesn't like to be entertained?
Right. Agreed. And now don't get me wrong. I know a thing or two of a thing or two. However, I just feel like it is just the way I look at life. Like it's laughter, it's fun. I'm like the inappropriate friend that always is like, is it too soon? Okay, it's not too soon. But real quick about that Parvati interview, right?
Tell us.
This is random of a random of a random. Because I lived for Parvati, right? I was like, I love Parv. And so I was like so excited when they were like, I'm going to LA, do my exit interview, I'm going to meet with Parvati. I was like, oh, I got to get this outfit. Like I had these like thigh high Doc Marten boots, these black pants, a little like, I wanted to give like, oomph. Now, this where the story take a toll. The seats that we had in that interview, right? They weren't like these type of seats. Like they were like these weird seats. Anyway, the interview was amazing. I love Parv. She loves me. Like the fact that like I know Parv, the fact that I could text her and be like, hi, and she'll text back is like, anyway, but back to the interview. Like when I rewatched that interview, because like I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sitting next to Parv. Like I'm going to like remember this interview forever. Okay, because I wanted to make such a great impression on the gay icon that is Parvati. Like I had this like extravagant outfit, but due to the way the chairs are, like it's giving rolls on top of rolls on top of rolls on top of rolls. Like I just hate that for me. But okay, that's random.
I hear what you're saying, and I would also I would live that in my conscious for the rest of eternity too. But I think you look fabulous and you looked great. So I thought it was a cool interview, and I think everyone listening to this should check it out. Check out the Survivor Live interview. But
tell Brice how good he looks.
But zoom in on the faces the entire time if that is the better way to appreciate it. But I think Brice's outfit looks great. Yeah, listen to it. Audio only sometimes is best. So. What a fun little detour. I want to now move into some of the stuff I found kind of about Rob at his time, more
When his seasons
historical, historical viewing of Rob. And so, the thing I want to mention is that, by some counts, because there's different methodologies here, Rob has the highest confessional count in a single season. So some accounts have him at 104 in his season, and second to that is like Colby Donaldson at 98. But most people don't, get above 80, like that. I mean, it's really, really hard to get that high up, and that speaks to Rob and really as a confessionalist, as someone they really like to narrate stories, I think. And I think the only reason maybe there's some debate here is that there's a rule sometimes about if the confessional ends and a scene happens and then you get piped back in, is that one confessional or is that two? So like, it depends on who's like grading it, but undeniably Rob is still one of the most
visible
confession, yes, ever.
And whenever I'm preparing for the podcast, I like to look the person up and do like best of on YouTube. And most people have like 15-minute, like Ozzy from his time on Micronesia, you have like a 15-minute video. Rob's from the Amazon was like 40 minutes.
It's like a whole episode.
It's like a full episode. And it's because he had so much good content that they had no choice but to show it.
But wait, can we also, because when you guys reached out for this, like I did a little homework like 2 weeks ago and I actually watched that. Can we talk about his poses?
Oh yeah, he had a lot of poses.
Confessionals. And again, someone that has been out on the island for a small period of time, they're not telling you those poses, okay? So it's like, again, Rob, the icon that he is, giving the children these weird and awkward poses that we love. Because I was like, why is he sitting under the tree like that? Like, it just can't be comfortable. But okay, sorry.
But and that's part of why we like Rob, right? Is that he is being himself, and I think that's actually something about a lot of like the earlier seasons that you do see people give confessionals with like weird angles in their body, or like facing the camera in an unexpected way.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What I also just wanted to quickly mention was that I found some other popularity polls regarding Robert himself. How people talked about him. So Survivor Sucks had a poll from 2013. So, it's still a few years after Amazon, but like, again, 10 years ago. And he was ranked number 5 overall. And Survivor Sucks is known as a place that had a lot more queer fan bases, more like campy fan favorites. He only is outranked by Courtney Yates in China, Sandra in Pearl Islands, Natalie White, LOL, and Sari Fields, Panama. So like, he's the highest ranked man yet again. I think, again, more points that maybe Rob is a gay icon. And then also there was a poll in this like research book that I found about Survivor. I used it during grad school called Tribal Warfare. And they, right after Palau, so that's the 10th season. So this is before Brice finds the show, right? So like the 10th season. And they they have all these people rank all the contestants, how like what contestants are the most popular. And Rob was ranked 12th, just below Rupert. He was ranked 12th right below. So, I mean, this is someone who was very, very popular. And I think you hear Rob is popular. And obviously he's popular on the internet because like, that's where Rob lives. But like, even then he's still like up there with some of the legends of the show. And I feel like people should remember that.
Yeah. I mean, Rob is such an important figure in like moving the show in a more strategic direction than it had even been at the time. And it's nice to know that Rob was appreciated for his contributions at the time and that he's still remembered for helping to, make the show as exciting and dynamic that it continued to be.
Yeah, I think so. And Brice, does this surprise you that he was as big as Rupert?
No, I'm just happy that Rupert was bigger than him because we just love Rupert. No, it doesn't surprise me at all. Again, it's Robert. And again, has these one-liners. He's snarky. And so what else could it be than like next to a Rupert that, we just love Rupert. Now I feel like Robert needs to run for Senate, okay? And I feel like that poll would have him higher than Rupert.
Yeah, I mean, oh, how exciting would that be? And the snark is such a great thing to mention about Rob because I think who also is very popular on the Survivor internet is like Courtney Yates, who's also known for her snark. And they're both like the New Yorkers with a very sharp wit, and like it is a character that we tend to really like. The final thing I want to mention that I found in my historical research here is Mario Lanza, Survivor historian who's been on RHAP before. I found his article or his column right before Rob Cesternino went off onto All Stars. So this is like kind of like it's a look, if you will. It's like, again, kind of Survivor critics thoughts about what's going on. And this person really adored Rob. They knew each other, because Rob was like very popular for internet fans. And towards the end, he says, honestly, I have no idea how Rob is going to do on All Stars this season, but you have to believe I am dying to see how well he's going to do a second time. Unfortunately, he will have a target on his head the size of Rhode Island, and I don't expect him to actually last very long, but he will be fun to watch as he always is. And I say this without any personal bias whatsoever, but you really should be rooting for the guy because Rob is a fan. He's a fan just like the rest of us. He is an internet guy. Rob is one of us, and he always has been. Rob Cesternino is the best. Reactions, Brice?
I agree, and I love it, but not the size of Rhode Island. But I also feel like, again, Rob going out early the second time he played, for me, I feel like, look at Tony the second time he played. Like sometimes it's hard to get your footing. And again, I feel like after seeing Rob on Amazon, when I feel like it's like when you're playing cards, when you show people your hand, right, they kind of know what to expect. So I think that, Rob had an uphill battle, but I'm glad he knows what pre-merge is like. It's a happy place.
Yeah, and I think Rob going kind of early, I feel like, for some people it does damper his legacy in a way, but I've always believed, like, especially back then, returns are really hard. If everyone knows that you're a threat, they would get rid of you. And so it's like kind of hard to really evaluate anyone on their return.
Yeah, I mean, the reason Rob goes early in All Stars is because everybody respects the game that he played and is really worried that he is going to outplay all of them.
And his tribe has no winners, which is why he's the honorary winner yet again. He's booted because of that, and booted by Rob and Amber, who will become winners themselves. So, maybe game recognizes game. I don't know. But yes. And I wanted to mention how I did feel like if Rob did not go on with RHAP or more stuff, he could have easily ended up like Diane Henry from Big Brother 5, who was also considered a pioneer in strategy and changing the game in a way, but it's kind of unceremoniously booted early on in an All-Star season, and where other legends kind of make their names. But I do think what's unfortunate is that because the returnees from Amazon do not go very far on the returns, some people might skip those seasons, right? You have 44 seasons to watch, and some people are like, skip Thailand. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there's only gonna be one returnee, or like they don't go very far. So like, it's not on that first watch. And so if you're watching Amazon, it's like your 30th season, maybe your steam's kind of run out a little bit. You're not paying as much attention. So you're not seeing Rob for what he is. But I think anyone listening to this who hasn't seen Rob's season, first of all, what the hell are you doing? You haven't seen Rob's season. But second, you should definitely do it and kind of like see it through a lens that will really make you appreciate his contributions. Because I think the way Rob played the game is a reason why Survivor has continued to exist, because the idea that you could flip so many times, it totally breathed new life into the show.
Absolutely. Of course it did. It's like, you can do that and get away with it. And then I just agree with that statement. And again, of course, the gays love a little shade. The gays love a little backstabbing. Like, just build your iconic resume, Robert. Can we talk about, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
We talk about the unhinged Robert error of, like, after he got off the Amazon and he was doing like the circuit of charity events and these photos that live on the Instagram history that is the internet. Like, just Google a Robert photo, like after the Amazon, like he was walking in a fashion show, right? He just had on a tank top, some wide leg jeans, no shoes, holding a beer, and his flannel open. That actually is like his contact photo in my phone. But there are so many, and this is like pre-Nicole, but there are just so many of images
Looks.
on the internet. It's looks of Rob just like living his best life. And again, I think that this only more adds to the resume of him being an icon.
Well, Brice, thank you for sharing because I was not aware that these photos existed
Oh,
on the
yes.
internet.
Yes. And listen, go to Chappelle's Twitter page because Chappelle always likes to post them as well. But yes, there are so many unflattering photos of the baby boy Robert that I just love. And anytime I see them, I have to text him and be like, what were you thinking?
So
And Robert's like, it was a different time than Brice. And we like, no, Robert, no. Why? Sorry, it's this one iconic photo. I have to know what I'm talking about. But it's like, oh, so it was a fashion show. Rob's like, yeah, like, it was a fashion show, Brice. A fashion show with no fashions? Like, where are your shoes?
Brice, would you like to see Rob recreate this look today?
Absolutely. With the Miller Lite in hand as well. Absolutely.
Nigel, in case you were
Wow.
curious.
Okay, everyone does need to look this up because I think he's also barefoot in this photo, which
Yes.
is like, Rob, if you were on stage, why are you barefoot? This is
Where
important.
are your shoes?
Where are the shoes?
But much like gay icon Britney Spears in that restroom in 2007,
Yeah.
shoes does not make a gay icon, apparently.
Listen, in order to be an icon, you have to have an unhinged error. And I think that, the internet provides these receipts of Robert. And so, again, only adding to his resume. I
Yeah.
really feel like at the end of this podcast, we might have to have a graduation ceremony for Robert where we give him his honorary doctorate.
Yeah, I think that'd be so fun, right? It's very Queer Eye for the straight guy, right? It's like we're gonna mint you and make you as fabulous as your energy is.
And we will request that he accepts this award in the outfit from the runway, barefoot and all.
Yes. That definitely was pre-Nicole because after post-Nicole, Robert always has shoes on. Okay, so
She was not going to let that
Yes.
continue. And, I respect her for it. She got him cleaned up with shoes and everything.
Yes. The first lady got him together. Thank you, first lady. Okay.
Well, Brice, do you have any other thoughts and takes about Rob you want to kind of share and bring up? I mean, I feel like everyone is tuning in for your perspective on Rob since the two of you are so close.
I think that another thing, in my opinion, that makes Rob a gay icon is that we should allow people the space to grow, right? Like, I think that there may have been a time or two, a period when Rob started the podcast that maybe there were things that as a white straight man he stayed away from, right? And I think that as time went on, as Rob grew, elevated, had different connections, I think that he made a conscious decision to say like where he actually stands. And sometimes people make stands and they speak about it, they talk about it, and other times people let their work speak for themselves. And I think that there has definitely been a shift in Robert in more recent years, that, from my opinion, you're on the right side of where you need to be. And I think that speaks volumes for me because, again, this country is run by straight white men, right? And so they at times have the privilege to kind of just sit there and be like, I don't know what's happening, huh? What? And Robert is never been scared to have a conversation and never in a conversation been scared to say, you know what? I don't know. Let me listen. Let me shut up and listen. And any opportunity, Robert always takes that opportunity to listen and to be an ally and to show up and to support. When, Rob started branching his empire off, one of the first non-survivor podcasts was given to a black gay man that was third boot on Cagayan. And that in my opinion, speaks for itself. You know, the initiative, the class of 2020, with him bringing on more diverse voices. Again, I just think that seeing people's growth, right? Again, because you could start somewhere and seeing the actual evolution and the growth and seeing that Robert really actually does make a difference. And although this might be in some small realm of the survivor community, but honestly, I really feel like the survivor community could change the world because it is so diverse and there are so many facets and so many people that watch Survivor. There are doctors, there are nuclear engineers, there are public service, there are lawyers. And so really Survivor could change the world. And so Rob just giving his platform to so many walks of life, always having an open door, speaks volumes to me. And again, I'm honored to be on his network. I'm honored to be his friend. And I'm honored to have this podcast where we can give the baby boy his flowers and, you know, truly crown him a gay icon, because I definitely think that he has earned that privilege.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You know, I think beautifully said, actually, as well. You know, Brice, I don't know if you remember, but, you know, we're class of 2020 inductees as well. And I recall when we jumped on to our interview, because we were interviewed to make sure that, you know, we were good enough, apparently. And while we were on it, you know, we thought we were just going to talk to some intern. Like, we had no idea that Rob was going to be on it, or even better, Brice was going to be on it. And we got done with it and we go, we met Rob. And then Nigel was like, we met Brice. You know, like, how crazy. You know, Mike Bloom was there, all these like really big wigs. And it was so nice because, you know, we talked about diversity and the importance of that, and that we really wanted to be on there to also kind of like encourage those conversations about our own lived experience. And so I think it is a big deal for someone who's, you know, this is like his baby. You know, this is his, you know, but he's invested so much into that. And to like allow, you know, and there was criticism and pushback, to allow that space to be there, to have those conversations, and to really kind of create a community where I think Black and brown, queer, all these different marginalized, you know, identities can come to knowing that this is a place that they will be appreciated, is something that is very worthy of honor.
I mean, I think it's just so cool to see that Rob isn't just, I think, like identifying opportunities to, you know, help expand the representation on the podcasts. But from what I see, it's not lip service. It's not a thing that he did because it felt like popular at the time. I think that he shows that he continues to try to uplift voices that are not represented. And it would be very easy to want to avoid controversy and just say, well, you know, this is, at the end of the day, his job in a business, and I want to be able to maximize the opportunity. So I will try to play it a little safer. But I don't think that Rob has done that. You know, the class of 2020 was started in the midst of all of the protests around George Floyd's murder. And I don't think that we look back today and think that like Rob did something in 2020 and that's kind of like what he did to help improve representation on RHAP. I think that you see that Rob consistently strives to be an ally to anybody who's interested in being a part of RHAP. And so it is really, I think, special for me to also be someone that, you know, was not really aware that I was bisexual before I met Kevin. And so to me, RHAP was an opportunity to learn more about myself through the community that I made. And I just feel like this is a very cool experience for me to get to talk about Rob as a queer ally, get to talk to the Survivor, because Brice, your boot episode was the first episode of Survivor I ever watched, and get to have this conversation with you about Rob with Kevin. It just feels very full circle.
Oh, it's so emotional. And, you know, I think we all are agreeing here that Rob is a gay icon. Any objections?
No objections here.
All right. Well, and the only thing I would object is if Rob does not get us a nice wedding gift. That because gay icons get good wedding gifts.
Yes.
That's the one rule. But I also, before we end today, because I know we need to wrap up, we'll make sure to go around the horn and do any last minute promotions, is that Brice, your beautiful studio that you have, I noticed that you have another gay icon back there that's being highlighted, because so do we.
Do you have the pillow?
Yeah, and the Carson Garrett
LGBTQIA plus ally pillow.
Exactly. Another person, because anyone that chooses to align with Carolyn and Jam Jam over straight people is a
Okay.
gay icon and will be loved by our community. And that's all I got to say about that.
Period. Period. We love the baby boy Carson, my little Harry Potter. Yeah.
Well, Brice, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been
Thank
such
you
a
for the
fun
honor.
conversation.
No, please. My honor, my privilege, apologies about the slow emails, but thank you. This was so much fun. And okay, but let me shut up. Okay, but thank you.
Brice, do you have anything coming up that you'd like to promote or share with any of the listeners?
Yeah, I have a couple of things cooking. The Purple Pants podcast every Tuesday. Just come discover the world of the Purple Pants. It is approaching August, and if you are a loyal fan of the PPP and RHAP, then it's smelling like it's Zaddy season. And so maybe the 2024 Zaddy calendar is getting ready to roll out. And Survivor is around the corner. And when DZ and myself are getting ready to hit the road again for the Tour 45. So we're going to be announcing that with some exciting dates soon. So yeah, the baby boy is over here just, in the purple realm of the RHAP, just cooking up some projects.
So, Brice, do you think that Rob's modeling photo is strong enough to make the Zaddy calendar?
So actually, Robert made the calendar this year. And it was funny because in the inception of the calendar, right? Again, it happened on one of my check-ins with Rob, where someone asked him, with the voicemails. I love the voicemails. And they were like, if you were to create a calendar, who would be on it? And so I just randomly spit off some survivors, and Rob was like, I would be on it. And I'm like, no, Robert, look at the shirt you got on, Robert. No. And then the Zaddy calendar became a thing. And every year Rob was like, this year. And I was like, you need a haircut. You got to do something with the hair, Robert. So actually 2023 was the baby boy's debut year, and he's October. And he kills it.
Oh, well, how fun. And where can everyone follow and find you, Brice?
I am on all social media platforms at Brice Izyah. And from there, you can find the Purple Pants podcast. You can follow Brice and Win Present, our event page. And yeah, the Zaddies will be coming very soon. And I'm excited for this year. Oof.
Oh, it sounds very exciting. Well, it's our season finale for You Thought You Knew. So we don't have any new episodes in the can, but we have several episodes that people can always check out, including 2 episodes that we do with Rob Cesternino himself. We did them on Colleen Haskell in season 1 and Eric Reichenbach in season 2. And then we also have several characters that we've discussed between those 2 seasons, including Xian Wang, Jenna Lewis, James Clement, people like Dreams, Rob, Amber, Tom Westman, so many characters to kind of analyze and discuss. Are any of them as great of a gay icon as Rob? I don't know, but it has been a really fun time being here, podcasting about Survivor contestants, and I love it.
Absolutely. And Kevin, where can folks find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Asian Narc, which is short for my Instagram handle at Asian Narcissist.
And you can find me on Twitter at Nigel Speed. Thank you so much for joining us on season 2 of You Thought You Knew. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast with the Brice Izyah.